Hello, hello, and welcome. Welcome to your free training on how to get woke, shifting the culture, reshaping the mind. I am Dr. James-Etta, and let me start by saying how so proud of you for taking this step. By wanting to learn more about shifting the culture, you are taking responsibility to change the world. I am so confident that this information is going to change not only your life, but everyone in your circle of influence. Whether you're a CEO working towards improving the culture of your company, an advertiser looking to send more effective messages to target audiences, or a teacher hoping to make every student feel welcome in the classroom, your time spent in this webinar is going to shift the dynamic in your thinking so that you won't ever look at your world or anyone else's world the same way again. In this webinar, you will gain a deeper understanding of the term culture and its implications on teaching and learning. You will also become aware of how you might be enabling a culture gap without realizing it. And finally, at the end of this presentation, you will have an opportunity to work with me to activate your knowledge as a powerful influence in culture change. The achievement gap is real. The culture gap is real. The first step to bridge the gap starts with you. Let's go. So, who am I? First, let me start with my name. My first name is James-Etta. Yes, that's right. You might be familiar with a different variation of that name. You know, Etta James, the famous soulful singer. At last. Now, I don't claim to be her, and I'm definitely not a singer, but here is a fun fact. I was named after Etta James. Most people do not realize that Etta James, she was born James-Etta Hawkins. That was her birth name. So my parents, who were very big fans of hers, they wanted me to have her name because they thought it was a very strong name for a woman. So there you have it, the origin of my name. But can I be real with you? I didn't always like my name. No, let me keep it really real. I hated my name growing up. I hated it. I would just cringe and slouch down in my seat whenever the teacher would take the attendance and call the roll because it always just was mistaken. Since James was my first name, they never saw the other part of the name. So it was a natural assumption to assume that I was a male, which I wasn't. And then I would have to correct them on how to pronounce it and go through all of this. And I'm just like, okay, it's not that hard. So growing up, I did not like my name. I wanted to be named anything else but James-Etta. But here is something that I've also learned. This has helped to shape my cultural awareness because it has been unfolding since the day one for me, simply because of my name. Because even as an adult, when people see my name on paper, or when I say, example, have applied for jobs, I can guess. I can automatically guess how many times I have been mistaken for a male. And it's not until I walk into the room and then introduce myself that I say, hello, I'm James-Etta, because they are looking for James. They are not looking for James-Etta. And so that is an example that I like to share, how we can always draw assumptions based on limited information. But don't always judge a book by its cover, and please don't always judge a person by his or her name. Let me share a little bit more about my journey. So understand that I know exactly how frustrating it can be to want to learn about various cultures, but have limited time, limited resources, and very little support. Meanwhile, my cultural awareness has been unfolding for a number of years, just like I shared with you about my name. So since day one. So whether it was my rural upbringing in a poor middle class family of a small southern community, or maybe it was me being labeled a low achieving at risk student my entire K through 12 experience, or then maybe it was also when I was married. I was married to a man who was in the military, and this allowed me to live in various places like Hawaii, Washington, D.C., and Wisconsin. Or it could have been the experience of me going from an at-risk student to then as an adult earning academic honors as a graduate student, completing my doctoral degree, and then ultimately surviving my divorce, all while parenting two teenagers. All of these experiences along my journey has helped to shape my cultural awareness, both personally and also professionally. But on my journey, as I have met people along the way, I have discovered that we are all connected through similar core experiences and also through our stories. These experiences help to contribute to the development of our culture. So now, let's take a deeper look at culture. Generally, when I give a talk about culture, the natural assumption is that I'm going to be talking about race. No, stop, talk to the hand, wait just 1 minute, because race is only a small part of culture. And as you can see on this slide, race is not even mentioned. Now, of course, race is the first thing that one will see because it's on the surface. So it's what's easily detected. When I walk into a room, when I enter a space, the easiest thing to detect about me could very well be my race because of the color of my skin. But see, that is just only the surface. You don't really know anything else. And then if you're assuming things based on my name because you just know me on paper, remember my first name is James. James-Etta is my full first name. Again, you can draw assumptions simply based on surface information when truly culture goes much deeper than the surface. Culture starts with those internal ideas, those beliefs, those personal opinions, and it can further be shaped by time, place, or group. Now, here's an example as far as time, place, and group. Say that Monday through Friday, between the hours of 9 to 5, those are standard or traditional hours, depending on where you work, that we particularly report to a place of employment. As we are in that space, in that particular time frame, and with the particular group of people, we adapt and take on the culture of our environment because that's our work environment. So we adapt, we conform to whatever the norms is for that space for that particular time. But before we go deep into the discussion about culture, let's first tackle and talk about mindsets because mindsets is where the true magic takes place. Okay, stay with me now. I'm taking you somewhere. Here we go. I am a qualitative researcher. So I dig deep into the backstory to collect data. That's a data collection point for me is the story. For this presentation, I will use my own experience as a real life case study and an example for this webinar. Now, on one side of the screen, you will see fixed mindset. In that fixed mindset, you will see a picture of me and my best friend, and that was my high school graduation. At the time, my only goal was to simply graduate from high school and to get on with life, whatever that meant. I did not really have the goal or the motivation to go beyond high school. Why? Because now looking back, I can see where I was really in a fixed mindset environment. meaning that the model that was set for me growing up, yes, education was very high on the value system. Meanwhile, the goal was to get a high school graduation, to get a high school education, to graduate, and to get a good job. And generally, a good job in my area growing up was a job at a factory, whether it was General Electric or Ford Motor Company or Philip Morris. Those were considered the quote good jobs. And then I grew up in a rural area, so there was plenty of farming opportunities. Well, none of that fit for me because I tried it and it didn't work. So when I saw that those were like the only opportunities for me after high school, I didn't want to do that. So my goal was to graduate high school and to leave my small town, to explore the world, go see something else, and that's what I did. So I had the opportunity to live in Texas because I had family there, and so I went there and I was there for a year. It was after a year of true life experience that I would return back home, back to my small town, but I still did not have a plan because my mindset at that time was still very fixed. It's like, okay, I tried something new, it didn't work, now I'm back, now what? Well, my best friend who was here in this picture, she encouraged me to go to college. She had already completed her first year of college. And so, what I didn't know at the time, but looking back, I completely understand how, although she and I were very close and we grew up together, we had very different mindsets. Where I was in a fixed mindset, my friend had a growth mindset. Even as a teenager, she was always talking about college and what she was going to do after high school. I mean, she was even talking about graduate school. And at that time, nobody was talking about graduate school in middle school. It's just like, girl, no. But she was, and I applaud her for that. So it was her encouragement, it was her enthusiasm because she was so passionate about education that truly motivated me. And so here were the differences as far as our environment growing up, our culture, is that her father was a science and a math teacher. And so very early on, it was already instilled in her to go to college and what that meant and how to go about doing it because there was a clear model set for her through her father and some of her immediate family members. And for me, that was not the case. That was not the culture, the immediate culture that I grew up in. So she encouraged me, girl, you can do it. You can go to college. Here you go. Let's do it. And she walked me through the process and I would get accepted. And that was my first college experience when I would go to Western Kentucky University. Up until that point, I had never even been on a college campus. So that truly was a culture shock because now I'm in an environment that's very different than what I've known or what I had experienced up until that point. As you see on the other side of the screen, you see now I am in the growth mindset, and you can see that I have completed my doctorate. What you don't see in the space between those two pictures is all the struggle, all the challenges, all the obstacles that I had to overcome in order to arrive at a place of having a growth mindset. And that was a lot of work. But what helped me to really tie those pieces together and connect the dots to truly identify and map out where I used to think one way, but now I think a different way. What helped me in that was through reflection. And that came about because naturally for me, whenever I could not express myself verbally, imagine that, right? I would write it down. So I kept a journal. And it was through this journaling and then this reflection that I began to connect dots to clearly identify where I used to be in one mindset, which was fixed, and how over time, through the process, I would eventually then show the ability to have a growth mindset. So each of these experiences, as far as gaps in my achievement, gaps in my culture, they have helped to shape my perspective and have led me to this unfolding of being culturally aware. But the true catalyst for me to arrive at that was through reflection. Okay, let's look at the stages of cultural awareness and let's examine the role that reflection plays in those stages. All right, here we go. As you can see, there are 4 stages of cultural awareness. For this webinar, we are only going to discuss the first stage, which is where most of us start. I know I have been here. Again, I can clearly identify where I have been so blissfully ignorant. And that is at a place where you are not aware of cultural differences between you and another person. And so, like I said, it was through that reflection that in the moment, I couldn't identify where me and my best friend, where we were kind of different in our mindsets and in our thinking. Hey, we grew up together. We've done, a lot of things together. But when I start to kind of peel back the layers and through the journaling and reflection, that's when I started to make those connections of the way that I thought about going to college after high school was very fixed, and then the way that she thought and how she was so excited and expressed such enthusiasm to go to college and even beyond was a growth mindset. So it was through those reflections that I was able to identify. And you can see that as you progress through these stages of cultural awareness, that the ultimate goal is to arrive at the spontaneous sensitivity level. But understand that there is deep work that takes place at every level, and the reflection is the key to be able to clearly identify where the progress has been made throughout these stages. And remember, reflection is an intentional process of writing down your experience, capturing it, and then intentionally going back to examine it through a different lens, going back to examine your behavior, your thoughts, your ideas, your culture, to see if over time maybe some things have changed. Okay, at the end of this webinar, I am going to share with you an opportunity for you to learn more about the other stages of cultural awareness. But for right now, let's continue on, and now let's look at the 3 types of reflection. So, in the example that I have been using as far as my real life case study, I share with you about my thoughts of school after high school, my thoughts of going to college. So my first college experience, I earned an associate's degree. After I earned that, then, life would happen, and then I would get married. And then, once I got married, like I said, he was in the military. And so then we would move to various places. Throughout now, at this point in my life, I had a deep desire to go back to college to earn my undergraduate degree, to get my bachelor's. But at the time, it felt like I had to start all over. So when I put that into context, because I had earned an associate's degree, right, that experience after high school. But then my desire to return back to school became very difficult, because at this point now I'm married, I'm an adult. And so I would always try to go back, but all of my credits would not transfer. And that just became like, okay, now what? So that was the context of where I was at the time. As I progressed, then I created a strategy for solving that problem. And that's where the process reflection comes in. Because after I had had my first child, and then we relocated again shortly after, we're in a new place. Actually, we're in Wisconsin at the time. And so I'm unpacking, trying to get the house settled and, make sure the baby's okay. And I'm setting up the new house. And I had a radio on just as background noise because the cable guy hadn't come yet, so it wasn't no TV or anything on. And as I'm unpacking, I heard a radio ad for a university who specialized in adult students returning back to school. And this is what stopped me literally in my tracks, is when I heard that this university accepted all previously earned credits. I mean, I had dishes in my hand getting ready to put them in the cabinet, and I just froze like, what? Can I rewind? What did you just say? And I hurry up and grabbed, a slip of paper somewhere and jotted down the number because I had to learn more information because I had never heard anything like this up until this point. So eventually I made the phone call, and then yes, I went ahead on and enrolled in the program. But you know what? Here's the kicker. I created a strategy to solve my problem to go to school, but what I wasn't prepared for was a challenge that was going to be right ahead of me, because as soon as I started taking my classes and I had just finished like the first term, so I was feeling really good about myself to be back in the classroom, I discovered I was pregnant again. Hello. Uh-oh. But no, it was truly a gift and a blessing. And so although it was a challenge, then I had to put this in perspective because I had to seriously consider whether or not being a mother of now two small children, would it be a problem while I was trying to go back to school, which was, a big goal of mine to go back and earn my undergraduate degree. And that helped to then shape and I processed through to the premise reflection. This is where I had to consider whether it was really a problem. And so in my reflections, I considered that no, it's not a problem. What I did was that I decided that it would not be a problem. Instead, it would be a motivation. And so let me pause right here because this is very key. I decided. I made up my mind. And that is where, when I reflect back, that was where the shift, that mindset started to fully take shape, where I was reshaping my thinking. I was not seeing it as a hindrance or a barrier. Instead, I was turning it around to look at it positively and to motivate me so I could continue with school and ultimately reach my goal. So those are some examples of how I would take reflection over my experiences and then journey through these three types of reflection. Okay, so now the next thing that we're going to look at is that I've pulled together some real life headlines of what's happening in our society today to demonstrate where that stage of cultural awareness, that blissful ignorance, how it is happening on a regular basis. Okay, but then I also am going to share with you how possibly the practice of reflection may have prevented some of these acts of blissful ignorance. All right, let's keep on moving. Okay, so let's just inhale, exhale. I am providing these headlines for information. That's what I do. But hey, I didn't write them. I just posted them and gathered them here to further illustrate my point that we have become, as a society, whether it is happening in business, whether it's happening in marketing, or whether it's happening right into our classrooms and our schools, that blissful ignorance, that offensive and insensitive behavior, that it is happening on a regular basis. And it's unfortunate that we are creating this norm around this type of behavior, this blissful ignorance. And so, how many times have we seen these headlines or been clued into these stories where someone has said something offensive, or a school has behaved in a way, or a teacher that was insensitive to a particular person or group, And number one, the reaction is that the individual did not know, they were unaware. Okay, so that's key. And then it's followed by like a blanket type of apology. And generally, the apology at the end, what I've noticed is that the statement will say something like, the actions of the person is not reflective of who we are as a community, or, of who we are as an organization, or who we are as a school. And when I hear that, I just have to just kind of ask, really? I mean, do you really know who you are as an organization, as a community, as a school? Have you even taken the time to truly examine your mission, your vision, and then clearly identify alignment between what these statements say and the ideas and the behaviors or the assumptions of your staff? I mean, has intentional time really been taken to examine these areas? Does your individual culture, does it partner with your company culture? Is this just a temporary little thing where, you behave and act a certain way for the sake of your job, but truly you're not vested in it? Truly, that's not who you are as a person? Because we've seen it play out, on social media platforms and other areas. And then people are just like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that they felt that way. Or I didn't know that that's how they believed. That's what they believed. So are you even aware of how the culture, your culture, and then the culture of those that you interact with on a regular basis, how in tuned are you? How conscious, how aware are you of your own culture and then the culture of those that you interact with on a regular basis? Now, hear me when I tell you that this is not an easy task to identify this. No, it's not an easy task. To keep it real, it is a real challenge. It has been a challenge for me. But as I shared with you earlier, I have been on this journey for a very long time. So it is a challenge, but it is one that I believe that you are up for. And it's certainly one that I am confident that I can guide you through because I have been through it. I just don't have all the time to share with you on this one webinar. Okay, but let's take a deeper look at the challenge and then we're going to talk about a solution because I got you. Come on now. All right, so here we go. Research supports the idea that having an experience was just not enough. Instead, one must critically self-examine or reflect on the experience to truly construct a new meaning perspective, to fully understand where improvements might be needed, and to how to move forward. And so it took me to go through the experiences that I shared with you as far as the ideas that I had early on about school or going to college after high school, the thoughts and the belief system that I had, and then to reflect over and compare my belief system to the mindset and the culture of my best friend. So it wasn't that I just didn't want to go to college. I had to really peel back. Why is it that I did not want to go after high school? What was the influence for me not to be motivated to go? And so it took me to uncover where I was blissfully ignorant in that space and time, in that context, and how reflection helped me to put the experience, helped me to clearly identify and put it in that context, to examine, my culture, to examine my home life, my immediate messages, the messages I was getting directly and indirectly as I was growing up, and where, I was seeing different things and drawing different assumptions. So it was through that process of reflection that I was able to identify that I was really part of the problem. And I was part of the problem due to my own thinking, due to my own mindset at that time. And so that was part of how it was a challenge for me to really own up my part in being a problem. That was where I was being fixed, is that I was my own problem because I couldn't move forward in my thinking. But it took the motivation and the confidence of my friend to help move me in the right direction. And so over time, the practice of self-examination or reflection helped me to identify where my mindset needed to take a shift. And then is when I started to then take action. I started to make different decisions. And then I went from being part of the problem. Now I can say with confidence, I became part of the solution, because this then enabled me to be a catalyst for culture change. So here's the challenge. Now it's your turn. Wherever you are, I want you to grab something to write with, a slip of paper, a pen or a pencil, or if you want to do it on your device. But at this point, I need to challenge you to think through some questions. And the main question is this: when it comes to cultural awareness, think through an area where you might be blissfully ignorant about a particular culture. Where is your mindset? And so I'm going to direct this to the CEOs out there who may be on this webinar. How are you truly improving the culture of your company? Because it all starts with you as far as laying out the company culture. To a possible advertiser, my ad executives out there, what direct or even indirect messages are you sending to target audiences? And to my teachers, to my educators, what ways are you making sure that every student feel welcome and connected to you and what you are teaching? Are you part of the problem, or are you part of the solution? So just take a few minutes and jot down your thoughts, your answers. This is key, that you have to intentionally act on this particular process at this moment, that you have to be intentional about writing down your thoughts. So I challenge you with this, to make this part of your regular practice, to just jot things down so you can have a data point, a written record. And then once you take the time to then go back and look at it, I encourage you to embrace this challenge to become a powerful influence in culture change. Because this is where it starts. It starts small, but over time it can build up. So that may be a challenge, and I know that it is because I've been there. And it still is it can still be a challenge for me. But I recognize it, and then I put strategies together because I know how to work through it. And so since I know how to work through it, let me share with you how I can help you work through it too. Gap Academy. I have designed a unique 12-week learning experience that is centered on the stages of cultural awareness and how to navigate through the stages. By registering for this one-on-one coaching series, you will be investing in an intense journey of cultural awareness through grit, accountability, and professionalism. These will be the elements to begin the process that is necessary to bridge the culture gap, both inside and out of your classroom, inside and outside of your offices, of your boardrooms. I am here, and I have created this learning experience to help you journey through this process. And so I want to tell you that it will not be an easy challenge. No challenge is easy, because when you uncover the truth, it puts you in an uncomfortable position. And that's what we're doing. We're peeling back to really examine some truths about our culture, because it starts with us, the individual. But the good news is you don't have to be alone in this uncomfortable process. The better news is that I have created this solution to help you through it. So the 12-week academy is offered fully online with a series of activities and assignments. I have structured it where I will create a safe and trusting environment where you can share your wins and share your challenges as it relates to cultural awareness and the mindsets of your organization. At the end, at the completion of the 12 weeks, you will earn 12 educational leadership hours. So see, I told you this is a one-of-a-kind professional development experience, and this will enable you to be a true catalyst for culture change. Now, if you would like to experience my 1-hour training in person, where you can get a full-on interactive session that is both informative, also engaging, and it is insightful, you can experience this firsthand with my jelly bean activity, which is what you see on the screen. And trust me, these are not your average jelly beans. If you want to have the face-to-face 1-hour training that I offer, then I encourage you to schedule time with me. Get on the call, which will be a free assessment that I'm going to be offering, and I'll let you know more about that here in a minute. Get on a call and get me on your calendar so we can set something up. Because let me just tell you, the achievement gap is real. The culture gap is real. And the first step to bridge the gap, it starts with you. You are already here, which means you are already interested in learning more. So I encourage you to take the next steps. And I'm getting ready to show you how you can contact me so we can collaborate and activate your knowledge to become a powerful influence in culture change. All right, told you, here we go. So here are all the ways that you can contact me. I would love to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your ideas. Even shoot me some questions about this webinar or any of the information that I've shared with you. So feel free to drop me a line at info@drjamesetta.com. I encourage you to get on my calendar and also check out my website, which is www.drjamesetta, all one word, .com. You can also like my page on Facebook, and please connect with me on LinkedIn. I want to thank you today. I'm truly honored that you took out the time to hear about this opportunity, and I encourage you to take that next step. Set up time so we can talk, because I will give you a free cultural club assessment, which will allow us both to uncover where the greatest needs are, either with you or with your organization, with your school or with your district. So reach out to me, get on my calendar, and let's start collaborating and let's start this process, because I promise you, you will not be disappointed. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining me. And again, I always celebrate. So cheers to the culture.